Alright, we're back. Another episode of Ben's Bait Breakdown from Ben's Bass World. I showed you my primaries, which was the textured crankbaits and the square and the round bill versions. And now I'm going to show you my secondary bait. My secondary bait is sometimes my primary bait. It depends on the body of water I'm fishing. If there's no crawdads in the body of water I'm fishing, well, I'm not going to throw a crawl pattern crankbait. And I rarely throw crankbaits in ponds. It just hasn't worked out much for me. So when I'm in ponds, and sometimes I'm in bigger lakes and I'm searching for fish, I got an old school tried true bait that I use that is my secondary, but sometimes is my primary bait, and it is just beetle spin. Just the beetle spin. It costs you about 75 to 95 cents depending on where you buy it. And the plastic that comes with the beetle spin, I don't chuck it in the garbage. I chuck it in a little bucket and I save them and melt them down to make other swim bait lures. But I add different trailers to these beetle spins. Sometimes it's just a little black grub, just a little curl tail grub, all black, and I like that when the water's really stained and muddy. Also like chartreuse grub when the water's real stained and muddy. Sometimes I use little torpedoes on the back of them, just a little torpedo on the back of these beetle spins. And believe it or not, I've caught giants on this setup. A little torpedo on the back of the beetle spin, and has caught me giants, as well as the grubs. But my main deal that I like to throw on the back of these beetle spins is some type of little swim bait. This is one of the I believe it's a Berkeley gulp, whatever, but it's got some real nice looking red eyes on it. You guys know how I feel about them red eyes, and it's got some texture to it, so it throws off a little bit more vibration in the water. It doesn't have the heart-shaped tail, it's just got a little round-shaped tail, and that's my favorite deal to throw. And this is a shad pattern, so the water's going to be clear to moderately stained water when I throw this. It's a shad pattern. I got them rigged up with more slender type sexy shad swim baits. I sometimes team them up with little bitty swim baits pre-rigged. This is one of my favorite deals I love to throw. As you can see, it doesn't have a paddle tail, it has a curl tail. This is a little 3-inch or maybe 3.5-inch Storm curl tail minnow. These are very hard to find. You can order them from Storm, but when you find them in the store, it's rare because there's some sucker like me that comes along and buys them all up every time they hit the shelf. These are a hot item when they hit the shelf. They work. They catch panfish, they catch crappie, they catch bass. And once again, I like to team them up. I'll take that spinner and put the spinner directly on the Storm curl tail minnow itself. And I'm trying to find just a spinner here. But here's one that I got in a little perch or a little bluegill pattern swim bait already rigged up. But sometimes I'll rig that curl tail minnow up there on that spinner. And sometimes I don't even use the spinner. If the water's super clear, you don't need the spinner. You just need something like this, a little curl tail minnow or something like this on a jig head. And the jig head is going to dictate how deep you fish it. Use a smaller jig head, you're not going to go very deep. Bigger jig head, you're going to go deeper, obviously. So I team them up, and as always, I'm looking for the trifecta. I don't want just the sight, I don't want just the vibration, I want them to smell it and taste it too. This is crawfish scent. I don't use crawfish always, but I like it. And even on the beetle spin, sometimes if I don't have the shad scent, I'll still spray it with crawfish scent. But they have the yum spray and shad scent as well, and so you can team this little rig up with some shad scent, any type of scent. And here's one that I got rigged up. It's a little smaller, a little greener, and it's just gonna bounce off the bottom, and I'm gonna rip it up And a lot of times when I get hit, it's on the fall. It's just shimmying down, and they'll come up and boom, smoke it. When I got them rigged up like this one's a little dotty green deal. It's more of a smoky color, less of a shad deal, more of a green deal. But you can tie on up here, obviously, and when you're running that through the water, and you just give it a little, just tap the rod tip towards the lure as you're reeling it. Just gives that bait a little flutter, a little flicker, and sometimes that's just enough to make them bite. I've had fish follow this bait my whole retrieve and not hit it, and then I'll cast back out there and give it just a little shimmy or let a little flutter, let it pop down 6 inches and pop it back up, and that's when I'll get smoked. But these little beetle spins are cheap, and the trailers you can get for them are cheap, and the bass you catch with them are big time. And if I was a tournament fisherman, I would have won a lot of money off these little cheap lures, because I've caught some big bass on these little rigs. So once again, Ben's Bass World YouTube, Ben's Bass World Instagram, Ben's Bass World Twitter, Ben Ritter on Facebook, Fishing for Galls on Facebook, Ben's Bait Breakdown, man. I'm breaking y'all down another one. I'm putting y'all on. This is the stuff I catch my big fish on. You see me on Instagram, you see me on Facebook. I'm catching monsters, man. We out here and we doing it Ben's Bass World style. BBW, man. We like them big girls. Believe that. And we ain't talking about regular females neither. We talking about bass. So BBW, Ben's Bass World, man. We out here doing it big, catching big fish, and I'm showing you guys how I do it with my Ben's Bait Breakdown. So stay tuned. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'm gonna hit y'all with another episode of a Ben's Bait Breakdown, showing you my baits, and I'm breaking them down on how and when I use them and why I use them, and they produce big fish. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow.